wanted to remember Private Sherman Richardson on this Memorial Day. Sherman was born August 5th, 1925, and passed away or was killed July 22nd, 1944. Sherman's parents were Clell Richardson and Maggie Harris Richardson, from Estill County, Kentucky. He had 6 siblings: brother Lewis, Will, sister Edna and Eva, and Myrtle, and then brother Edward. And then a set of twins would be born later, Margie and Roger, who were born in 1929. So he came from a fairly large family back there in Estill County. Here's a photo of Sherman and some of his siblings. Not sure of the date on that, but thought it was a cool photo to share. And here he is playing guitar, assuming that's at home, but evidently he had some musical talent, unlike me. But another photo of Sherman before he went off to war. Here's another photo of Sherman as a young man. I'm assuming this is before he went off for basic training. I'm not sure of the date on this one, but again, very young guy, pretty good looking young man too, I think. Had his whole life ahead of him. So Sherman enlisted November 17th, 1943. Most likely Fort Thomas, Kentucky, even though this record shows Cincinnati, Ohio. Fort Thomas was just on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. After enlisting on November 17th in 1943, he left Fort Thomas, Kentucky, and took basic training at Camp Croft, South Carolina. That was located about 6 miles from Spartansburg. It was a World War II Infantry Replacement Training Center, named after Major General Edward Croft. Sherman served with Company C of the 37th Infantry, fighting over in the European theater. You'll find out later he was actually killed in France. And here's a newspaper clipping from the Irvin Times, August 11th, 1944. Sherman Richardson killed. In a message Monday, the War Department notified Mr. and Mrs. Clell Richardson of West Irvin of the death of their son, Private Sherman Richardson, who was killed in the fighting in France on July 22nd. He entered the service November 17th, 1943 at Fort Thomas, and only recently went overseas. So he didn't even serve. He served January to Job E7, less than a year in the service before he was killed. Another newspaper clipping showing Sherman's funeral arrangements. Word has been received here the body of Private Sherman Richardson, son of Mr. and Mrs. Clell Richardson of the Shoatsville section of the county, will arrive here by train Sunday morning at 8:47 o'clock. Upon arrival, the body will be taken to the LeCompte Funeral Home there in Frankfort, Kentucky. And the article goes on to say that he had entered the service December 8th of 43, received his Army basic training in South Carolina, was shipped over to the European theater, served in active combat with Company C, 37th Infantry of the U.S. Army, killed July 22nd, 1944 in the Battle of St. Lo. We know from later research that we did that he was actually killed by a sniper and there in France. President Franklin Roosevelt sent this to my great-grandparents, Clell and Maggie Richardson, parents of Sherman here. And it says, in grateful memory of Private Sherman Richardson, and that gives his service number, who died in the service of his country in the European arena July 22nd, 1944, He stands in the unbroken line of patriots who have dared to die that freedom might live and grow and increase its blessings. Freedom lives, and through it, he lives in a way that humbles the undertakings of most men. And there's a photo of Sherman's grave buried in the Versailles Cemetery, Woodford County, Kentucky. Sherman did marry just before he went off to war to a young lady by the name of Ann Webster. He also had a son named after him, Sherman Richardson Jr., or as family all knows him as Sherman Jr., who was born February 7th of 1945, just less than a year after Sherman had been killed. So I wanted to take today to remember Sherman Richardson, a young 18-year-old man who gave his life in the service of his country. His son never got to meet his dad, and he certainly left this earth far too early. I know my grandmother was very close to Sherman and never really did get over his death, even in her last years. She would still talk about Sherman and how much she missed him. And so his short life had a large impact for sure, but certainly was cut much shorter than it would have been if he hadn't been serving his country. So that's it for now. I just wanted to share that little piece of my family history and hope you spend today thinking about those who gave their life in the service of freedom.